So over the last couple days, the PWHL announced a couple new interesting, I guess not rules, but kind of like tweaks to how they're going to do both the draft and the playoffs. And they're really interesting and really kind of innovative. It kind of reminds me of how we were talking about the Canadian Elite Basketball League with the ELAM
Oh
ending. We
yeah.
had that as a segment earlier. It's a similar kind of thing where it's like it's something that seems kind of there's a couple like rule changes that seem kind of gimmicky, but they make a lot of sense for the sport, and I think it's really interesting to talk about. I don't know. Do you want to start with the? We can talk about the playoffs or the draft first. What are you feeling? We'll get
Um,
into how it is.
I'd say we probably do the let's do the playoffs. That's coming
Okay.
sooner, and that was the big headline. Personally, and I did say this
Yeah.
to you
So
beforehand, I do think the draft is more interesting, but let's start with the playoffs.
we'll start with the playoffs. So the way that they've changed their playoff format is so there's 6 teams as of right now in the PWHL, and hopefully they'll expand at some point. But with how it works now, the top four make it, bottom two are eliminated. So 4 teams are going to make the playoffs. And the change that's unique to the PWHL is that the first place team will actually get to choose their first round opponent. And I believe it's not, I think it's just between the third and fourth team they'll get to
Yes.
pick.
Yeah,
And
that
then
is
the
it.
second place team gets whoever's left. But I find that really interesting.
No, I think that's
And I
awesome.
mean,
Yeah.
I think it's cool. I think it may not change strategy all that much, but who knows if there's a team that's like kind of come on hot, but they finish fourth. Maybe you want to avoid them, and maybe you want to play like a team that's third, but that's maybe been sliding a little bit recently. Hockey's a game that's all about momentum, and this may be a way to kind of interact that, and maybe like I'll find it interesting in terms of like the team that gets picked and how that mentality
Yeah.
changes. It's like, oh yeah, they wanted to play us. Well, let's show them. I think that's
Exactly,
interesting,
right?
and
That's
I think
that's
I think
the way
that'll
I
add
was
some
looking at it.
competitiveness to it.
Oh, it
Yeah,
absolutely will. Because just like I
yeah,
could just imagine what that locker room would be like afterwards. Because that's half the reason I love it. Because that's how hockey players are. That's how any athlete is. You don't want to get picked to play this certain team. Like it's even when like even in the NHL when a first a first seed is playing an eighth seed, and you're hearing all going into the series. Oh, we want to play them. You know that going into that game like that other team's going, oh yeah, I'm sure you want to play us, and that's
yeah,
gonna just make them put in so much more effort. I think that's so fun. So I'm on
yeah. And I
that part.
mean,
I'm really thrilled to see the rivalries that are built off of this.
oh yeah, because I mean, like in the NHL, yeah, sure, you'll have the outside commentary in terms of like, oh yeah, this is a good matchup. They're going to sweep by the eighth seed, but the team would never outright say that. But you're making the team outright say that with this, which is really funny. And yeah, really, really smart and a really smart way to do it. And I just love the creativity in these like kind of orbital leagues because we've seen it in all kind of sports. We talked about the Elam ending stuff, also similar kind of like innovative rule stuff that happened in the XFL and the USFL in terms of the football side, and the PWHL is kind of continuing that. And I think it's an awesome way to get more attention to the PWHL because we know that's a big thing. And they've been super innovative in terms of
Oh yeah,
getting more attention to them streaming on YouTube. This is another thing where it's like, yeah, like I'd want to check out a playoff series where they choose which opponent they're going to go after. I almost wonder why they shouldn't even restrain it to just the
that's kind of
bottom
what I
two.
was thinking
I don't know.
too. Like
Yeah,
imagine how cocky you would have to be to go, oh, I want number two, right? Like that'd be so cool. Like God.
honestly, but that might even be a strategy to where
Oh,
it's like
maybe. Yeah,
you want
maybe.
to pick the best team right away so you can play them when you're fresh,
Yeah,
right?
maybe. That's a good point. Yeah, it's
And
definitely
then
going to
when
be
this,
very interesting to watch. I'm super excited. I haven't been able to watch a lot of PWHL because, and me and you were both talking about this. We're both fairly busy people with everything that we have. I haven't watched a Flames game in a month, just because of the thousand things going on in my life all at once. But I actually have been excited to watch more of these games because every single time I have been able to tune in, it has been very entertaining hockey, which I know a lot of, and that is the reason that a lot of people have been drawn to it very early, and it has had a lot of success, is the fact that it is really good. Like, unsurprisingly, it is pretty amazing hockey. The only criticism that a lot of people have is the fact that they don't have nicknames, don't have logos yet, which apparently
Yeah,
that's going to be coming pretty quick here. But there's a lot of we're hearing a lot of really good stuff about this league, which is pretty incredible, honestly. The fact
it's
that
definitely the women's league that's had the most success and the most eyes on it, which is
yes,
really
yeah,
promising. Because I mean, there were other attempts, but it's not like they ever got that much press or got that much attention. I think the streaming on YouTube is such a big thing. I think that's huge in terms of getting their name out there. Sure, maybe it's not as good as like actually, although I think I do have a TV deal with ESN. Um, I guess not as lucrative as that, but
I'm not sure on that one,
I
but I
I
guess
think
I
I
just don't
think they,
know.
uh, but either way, it's a great way to get your name out there because even like I think you said you had a similar experience, Simon, where it's like I wasn't thinking about watching this, but
Yeah,
it popped up in
yeah.
my YouTube feed, and I was like, I've heard about it, so I want to check it out. Like again, also haven't had a chance to watch like a full game or anything, but I've watched like a little bit of a period here and there just because it'll pop up, and I think that's really interesting. I do think the no names is a huge thing that I know they wanted to start up right away, so that's why they didn't have time to like get anything designed. I hope that's in the works because I do think that adds a lot more. It's like I don't
I
want to
hope it
cheer for
is.
PWHL New
Yeah.
York or PWHL Toronto. Like I don't care. But if they actually have a team name attached to that, then I can start to become like, oh, I'm a whatever
Yeah.
fan. I'm not a
Yeah.
PWHL Toronto fan. Like I don't care at that point.
Yeah, I don't necessarily disagree. I do feel though that there are so many people that like when it was announced that they were going into the season without team names, there's so many people who, and I mean it's the same people who would not be caught dead watching a female sport, but like it's saying that like, oh no, this thing's dead in the water because they don't have team names. The Washington football team played like 2 years without a name.
Yeah.
Like this shit happens. I do think it's an overreaction. I do agree with you. They definitely do need to get it figured out, but I mean obviously it's not a necessity right off the jump. I
Yeah. I
I
mean,
think
they're making it work.
yeah, they absolutely are. I'm super excited to see what they end up landing with on all that because I already mentioned to you, Caleb, I have picked a favorite team, but I'm curious if whatever they decide to name them changes how much I want to cheer for them. But I guess we'll cross that bridge when we get there. It'll be
Yeah.
interesting though. I have been wanting to sit down and watch more games actually, which whenever a lot of these startup leagues do happen, and I'll give like one game a try, right? And a lot of times I'll sit there and go like, it's just not as good, right? Like if I'm watching like an
Yeah.
NFL, if I try and watch the XFL, I'm like, I'm all right. There are other things I could do.
You have to be a sicko like me to watch
Yeah,
the
yeah, yeah.
XFL.
Like you there's like other things I could be doing, with an exception to the CFL, I guess. But like, I a lot of
Even the CFL, I've my CFL watching is very much from June till August, and then as soon as the NFL starts up, I don't really watch anymore until the playoffs or the Grey Cup.
yeah, which is fair, right? But like with this one, it is actually different in the fact that it's really good. Like it's legitimately really really good hockey, and that is the one thing that a lot of these. It's not like they're trying to compete with the NHL. They do not.
No,
There is not a top female league in the world that is already set up. They are trying to fill that spot. That's the difference. So they already.
yeah,
It's not like they're trying to compete with an already set thing that's been around for 100 years, like the XFL is with the NFL and a thousand other
well,
examples
the
like that.
XFL. I mean, they're not trying to compete with the
I
NFL.
know, but just like you get what I'm saying here, right? Where it's like there's never going to be a world
It
where
is a
you
new
will be able
niche.
to compete with the talent of the NFL. Where while with the PWHL, they have the most talented female women's hockey in the world right now,
Yeah,
and that is something that they can. There's no one who can compete with that, and that's part of
yeah,
the reason
they
they're
have.
finding success.
Yeah, they do have that in terms of like they have an actual draw. Because I mean, the XFL's draw and the USFL and all those draw is that they're playing football in the spring. It's not anything about the actual talent because it's NFL practice squad guys and guys that never made it to the league. But yes, exactly, the talent is there. It is still tough because they are still going on at the same time as the NHL, and while they're
Yeah,
not directly competing with the NHL, you all are still kind of competing for hockey fans. Um,
yeah,
that would be kind of that is kind of the thing, and I'm like almost wondering maybe they should be playing like and maybe it would be easier if they were playing in the summer. But I do think they've done a lot of things to help themselves kind of get over that. One of those things is, if we want to get back to the rules, is the draft rule.
Yes, that is a really
That's
good
another
one.
really inventive thing. So I think this one, it took a while for it to sink in for me in terms of like how this would actually operate when you were explaining it. Because initially I was like, oh, that doesn't make any sense, but now like it does. So the way it works is that instead of the first overall pick just going right away to the worst team or it being just a straight lottery, what they do is as soon as the team gets eliminated, then it's a race for the first overall pick. So the team that wins the most games after they've been eliminated gets that pick. Now, that makes it almost intentionally uneven because obviously some teams are going to be eliminated first, but that enables those bad teams to still have a little bit of preference in terms of getting that
They
pick,
have more
and
time
it
to get
completely
wins.
de-incent. Yeah, and exactly, more time to get wins, and that's the big thing. And I love that because it balances out the need to like, because originally when it was explained to me, I thought that it was just the team with like the best record who didn't make the playoffs, but that's not how it works at all. It's after you get eliminated, whoever has the most wins. So there's still incentive to play, but there's also still an incentive for the league to make the worst teams better, and they still give them a leg up, but they have to earn it. I love
I
that balance, and I think that's something they should do
Oh,
for like
absolutely.
NHL and
They should
any
do it
other
for
league,
anything,
honestly.
everything.
Yeah,
Every
yeah,
league could use that. I think, like with maybe the one that would have a tougher time with it might be the NFL, but like that's just
yeah,
because they
because
play
they don't
less
have enough
games.
games.
Yeah, but
Yeah,
all the other leagues, absolutely, that'd be awesome. I think that's so damn cool. The fact that they're doing that, and
yeah,
it really does have an incentive, like you said, to keep trying, because there's a lot of examples I can think back. I mean, gosh, with the Flames, every time that we've been eliminated early, they'll just start throwing prospects out there, and you kind of just know not to watch those ones.
yep.
Like, it's that type of thing, right? Where, like, at a certain point, it's not competitive. This is a really smart way to keep it competitive, and I think it's
Mm-hmm.
so fun. The one, it's, the one thing that's super interesting to me is when a team eventually does come along that's so bad that they legitimately cannot win more games than like the team that would be second worst, and they just almost get stuck in like a spiral a little bit. Like that is the one issue I could potentially see with that, but I think the chances for that are slim.
I think so too, because if a team is that bad, they will have a much longer time to win games. So like
Yeah,
even
true.
even then, like even like I don't know, it's like even bad teams in hockey and basketball and all these leagues that have like 1,000 games, even bad teams will win a couple games. Like the Pistons have been going on a relatively hot streak for their Stanford in basketball. Like it happens, where they like these teams are going to win games, and I do think it does a really good job of balancing it out and making it interesting. Um, to where those games actually still matter, because that's the other thing. Like as a fan too, like if I and especially like as a Seahawks fan, like there'd be the one year where they were terrible. I was tuning. I didn't ever tune out because I'm insane, but I was like very uninterested in the last few games because it's like I don't know if I want them to win. Even this year, the game against the Cardinals, they weren't eliminated until like midway through that game when we found out that the Packers had won. But even then, I was like, well, I don't even want to win this game anymore. Now at least there in this system there'd be still incentive to cheer for your team. And I think that's what's really impressive about the system is that it keeps that going the whole way through. There's still something to cheer for, even if your team is completely terrible.
Yeah, and I mean it all, and that's exactly what leagues like this are looking for. Now, it really makes me wonder if, depending on how things go this year, which I think it'll go well, unsurprisingly, because it's a good idea. I gotta wonder. It makes you wonder if the NHL might think about trying to do something like that, because I'm really curious to see what that would look like in. I mean, we're gonna get to see what it'll look like in a six team league. What would it look like
and
in a league with 30 teams that all
yeah,
would be stacking veterans at the trade deadline to try and
that would be
add to
fun.
their, like, can you imagine if right now, like, fucking I don't even know what's like the worst team. The Sharks. Imagine if the Sharks were trying to trade for like I don't know, like
Tanev and Lindholm
Tarasenko,
and
like
yeah,
like imagine fighting for the first overall pick is so funny but so awesome. So I'm so on board with that.
I think it's a great idea. I think the one thing in terms of like getting the NHL on board that's tough is that these leagues never make the smart decisions. The onside kick still exists in the NFL, so we know that it's hard for these things, even if there's a clearly better alternative to them. It takes forever
The
for this to be implemented.
NFL, or sorry, the NHL, I feel like isn't as stubborn when it comes to that. Strangely, like because we
I
have
think
seen them make
I think all the
changes.
big leagues are. I think all the
Oh, I'm
big
not saying
leagues
they
are. Like
aren't,
that would
but
be a
I'm
pretty
but like think
that
about
would be a
like the
pretty
three
big
on three,
change.
3-on-3 OT, adding shootout in the first place, like stuff like that. Like they're not afraid to
Yeah,
make
that's true.
changes. Like the NHL specifically is not afraid to make changes to make the game more entertaining. Which
Yeah, and
making
I
goalie
think they
pads
will
smaller
probably
is another big one that
yeah
like the NHL has done a really good job, I think, actually evolving to the modern game, and I think this is another example of something that I think, depending on what the NHL does, could just become a staple in like 20 years because I think that's so much more
yeah.
fun. Like I think the
I hope that I mean I hope the PWHL stays around for a lot of reasons, but like
yes, yeah,
just to see these rule changes, like that would be another big reason. Because like I'd like to see this play out like multiple years to give a huge sample size in terms of how it'll work.
yeah.
Does it take effect this season? I assume it doesn't because they've already been playing. Or does it? That would be my question.
Um, that is a very very good question that I'm not too sure on. Um, it
Yeah,
does
that
look
would
like it
be
will happen this season, to what I am seeing.
okay. Okay.
Yes.
The team with the most draft order points. Yeah, I hope that
I'm just assuming that no team has been eliminated yet. So I think,
yeah, I mean it's pretty. I assume it's still pretty early in there, or at least like a midway point. I think is where they're sitting at, so that makes sense.
yeah,
And they're all
about right.
pretty. I mean,
Well, they're
it's a
pretty
new
well
league. They're all
balanced.
pretty
Yeah,
even.
they're pretty even.
Yeah,
With like, I'm pretty sure it's Minnesota and New York are the two best teams, if I remember right. I think maybe
Minnesota and
Toronto.
Toronto. Minnesota,
Is it
New
Toronto?
York sucks actually.
Oh,
New York
really?
is
Oh, maybe
terrible.
I'm way off.
Yeah,
God, fake
New
fan.
York is the
My
worst
bad.
team. Yeah.
I knew Minnesota was one of them. Give me
Okay,
that.
but even like, yeah, no, nobody's been eliminated. Even Ottawa and New York are still 2 points back of a playoff spot, and they're tied for last. So
Yep.
that would be the one thing that would not. I guess this would still create intrigue. It's like if no, especially in a 16
Montreal is
league,
the other team
if
that's really good.
nobody if nobody gets eliminated until like the last game of the season, like how does that work?
Well,
That
and
would be the
you
one
want to hear
thing.
the funny thing, Caleb, as well, with like even New York, you said is ass. I think they're 6-5. They're 6-5-1. Like Ottawa is
Yeah, no,
4-5-4. Like there's teams that are
well, yeah, because
absolutely really
that's
good.
what I
Yeah.
well that's what I said when it's like yeah, there's still 2 points out of the
Yeah.
playoffs.
Well, yeah, exactly. Right.
Um,
Like it's very very even.
yeah, yeah. So it's like that might be interesting. Maybe I was gonna say that still might create some intrigue if it's like if nobody gets eliminated until like the last game, but then it's like a almost like a winner take all kind of thing
Yeah.
in terms of like one game to decide who gets the first overall pick. That would make things still interesting. Overall, it's just a great rule change. The more I think about it, the more I like it.
Yeah. And I think as my last call out to anybody who has not tuned into into those games or at least given it a shot, I will say that you cannot attack it without trying it first because I have
Yeah.
been calling games for the women's team for the Trojans this last season, and I will say it is a completely different style of hockey. If you like, it is completely different strategies for the most part. It is very, very different as a whole. Like it's just, and it makes it very entertaining. And as somebody who is a goalie lover through and through, I love watching goalies. I love this. I think stylistically, some goalies are just super fun to watch, and a lot of those goalies, the best ones or the most entertaining to watch, are in women's hockey because they have to play so well a lot of the times. And even if you just like, here, an example for what I mean by this, I'm going to scroll through the save percentage in the PWHL, the rankings. The top one in the league right now is a 961. Then it goes 949, 940, 930, 923. They have insane goaltending in these leagues. And that's women's hockey as a whole. And I think if you are a goalie lover like me, you will love watching the PWHL because there are so many talented goalies in that league. I think that's why I enjoyed the game so much that I watched, because it was a goalie duel. Like, there was a lot of offense, like there was a ton of shots on goal, but those goalies were just standing on their heads.
None of these goalies have a save percentage under 900.
Yeah.
From what I'm seeing.
Yeah. There's so much talent in between the crease for all these leagues. So I think, yeah, it has been on my to-do list for the last little while. We're hitting like the playoffs in most things that I call for, so I've been busy off my fucking ass, but I have been wanting to tune in to another game for a while now. So I'm committing to doing that again, because I am seeing on the schedule next time Minnesota plays is on March 3rd, which is Sunday, which I do have off. So I think I'm going to watch that game.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
I am not working that day, so I think I should be able to watch that. So I am excited, though, for what happens with this league, because I think it has so much potential. And the one thing that a lot of people talk about in any women's sport, and I think the fact that this is already such a huge conversation as well, it kind of shows that it's another thing that could potentially be changed in the future, is the pay. Which, with the WNBA, it's been a conversation for years about how the comparison between NBA and WNBA is atrocious. Like, I think LeBron makes double what the entire WNBA's like funding is, or something stupid. Like, it's a crazy number.
Yeah.
But like with the PWHL, it's the same thing. Like, they make about the same that the WNBA makes. But the fact that they're already talking about potentially changing that as the league becomes more successful, I think really does show the fact that that is something that they already know will be an issue in the future, and they're willing to work on it, which is super important, I think, with the expansion into the women's side of this type of thing, because I know that is a huge reason why a lot of players in women's hockey quit after college, because there's just not money in it, right? And I think the fact that they're finally, this is showing that they do care about that, and they are going to start working on that. I think that's huge, even if it's not going to happen now. The fact that conversation is getting started is awesome.